Chairman, Board, and staff of the Chemical Safety Board for your thorough investigation and productive collaboration with Cal Osha. And I also want to give thanks to our state, local, and national legislators for their leadership and commitment to improving refinery safety for workers and communities. There are many, many lessons from the August 6th fire, and chiefly the importance of adequate preventive measures to ensure no future incidents. That requires both a strong and informed regulatory system to monitor refinery compliance and a true and genuine proactive commitment to an investment in safety by the refineries. I will briefly summarize Cal Osha's investigative findings, and I want to kind of indicate that while we were grateful, we are grateful that there were no serious worker injuries and fatalities from this preventable fire explosion. Our investigation over the past 6 months indicated many systemic, pervasive problems in corporate management, in failure to follow not only California's and national process safety management standards, but Chevron's own policies and procedures. As a result of our investigation, we found and issued 25 citations, 23 of which were serious or willful serious violations, which indicates the degree of severity of the hazards, the serious possibility, reasonable possibility of death or injury of these hazards, and the degree of knowledge and intentional conduct on the part of Chevron in ignoring those hazards and known safety standards. I might add that our citations issued January 30th in many ways mirror the Chemical Safety Board's findings issued this week. We issued nearly $1 million in penalties, the highest in Cal Osha's history, and the maximum allowed under current law. Chevron has appealed all citations and penalties, and the appeal has not yet been set for hearing by the independent OSHA Appeals Board of California. What is striking to us was that there were many, many serious violations prior to, during, and after the fire. This was demonstrated in the video that Dan provided, which helped me understand in ways I now get much more clearly the many, many problems. And as I mentioned, failure to comply not only with the PSN standards, but Chevron's own policies, put workers at risk at every point in the process. Just to summarize very, very quickly, no effective process hazard analysis at the crude unit, no corrosion monitoring, no replacement of severely corroded pipe, no, as we've heard repeatedly now, for 10 years, identified ignoring the strong and repeated recommendations of pipe inspectors and Chevron's own metallurgists, failure to take advantage of at least 3 opportunities to replace this severely corroded pipe and prevent the accident that did occur during turnarounds at least 3 times in 2002, 2007, and 2011. We too were concerned that so many workers were at grave risk in the zone of danger. Chevron's own workers and contractor workers brought in. We were concerned and cited for the failure to shut down despite the obvious leak, putting workers at risk while attempting to clamp an obviously dangerous situation, not following Chevron's own emergency procedures, And then in the course of this investigation and through information provided also by the workers and union at Chevron, the identification of really failed leak repair procedures throughout the refinery, the use of clamps throughout the refinery, well beyond allowable time limits, rather than implementation of permanent and safe correction of problems. And most disturbing, I think, I repeat what has been suggested before, from Cal Osha's perspective, most disturbing was the fact that Chevron knew for over a decade of the hazardous conditions of the severely corroded and worn pipes and leaks, knowledge that they uniquely had, knowledge not available to Cal Osha or other regulatory agencies, of the highly corrosive high sulfur crude, the state of pipes in existence for 38 years. Chevron had that unique knowledge of hazards, the ability and ample opportunity to act to prevent the fire that occurred, the risk posed to workers in the communities, and frankly, other accidents that could have caused catastrophic consequences. We can only wonder what other hazards have been known and not reported to us. Frankly, running to failure rather than follow best practices, industry guidance, and Chevron's own policies and internal recommendations to replace, to inspect more frequently, were conclusions that we drew from our investigation. The consequence was putting Chevron's own workers and their contractor employees, as well as the community, at great risk of death or serious injury, with the knowledge of the likely consequences of this action and pervasive violation of safety standards. What may be lost in the aftermath of the August 6th fire, and I want to emphasize, is the fundamental responsibility of Chevron and other refineries to ensure the safety of their workers and all other workers on site at all times. Cal Osha's mandate, no matter what resource level we have, our mandate is to monitor the compliance of refineries to ensure that they are maintaining safe and healthy workplaces. Our recommendations from this and lessons learned are fourfold. First, again, as has been mentioned, the need for greater transparency. At this point, we are operating without sufficient information from Chevron and other refineries, information that is often technical, trade secret, proprietary, but information that is desperately needed for effective monitoring and enforcement. Given the size and the complexity of refineries, the changing technologies, processes, and materials, there is an overwhelming need for more timely information and reporting by refineries at such times as turnarounds, so that we can better target and prioritize inspections rather than look and divine hazards that are well known to Chevron and to other refineries. We need to be able to have that kind of information to address the most serious and known hazards that refineries have themselves identified, rather than guessing. That is the most effective use of resources. Even the most well-resourced agency alone cannot act effectively without this type of information in real time provided by refineries. Second, prevention should be the driving force, not reaction to accidents. Continuous improvement is the best practice, and that includes improvement in process management, in refinery maintenance, in standards, and in regulatory strategies. As the CSB's report has underscored, the industry has the knowledge and the power to eliminate hazards in so many ways by using inherently safer designs and materials instead of relying on government inspections alone. when possible and when adequately informed, to detect problems known to refineries. Again, the refineries are in a unique position to have that information. The need for more investment by refineries in infrastructure. As pointed out, this is an aging industrial system. Pipes, the pervasive use of clamps demonstrates this lack of commitment at Chevron, and maybe as well throughout our refineries in California. That will be the subject of our process quality verification inspections this year. That's looking at only one of myriad issues we could be looking at in refineries. I want to just remind the community and the CSB, we spent a lot of time as state and local and national regulators considering the appropriate pipe material to rebuild the crude unit after the fire. And though there was a lot of attention to the pipe material, frankly, the quality and the frequency of maintenance was equally important in this decision. And that requires a commitment by Chevron. They alone, again, have the intelligence about the type of crude, the silicon content, the temperature, the pressure in those pipes. So the simple decision, again, decisions which in some cases are being foisted on local government without all of this information to reach the best informed decision, leaves us all, workers and the community, at peril.
That's right.
Thirdly, the culture of safety. Frankly, I'd like to understand better what that term means. And I look forward to the CSB's final report to provide more to that mysterious title, which can belie many things. But I want to indicate, and much has been said about corporate decision-making, decisions to ignore the clear and repeated recommendations by scientists where business management ignored those decisions. I share Congressman Miller's curiosity, frustration with that whole process, and we look forward to those answers by Chevron and by the Chemical Safety Board. I think, though, that one element of the culture of safety that Cal Osha believes is absolutely imperative is empowered workers. Workers are in the best position to identify the hazards and they need to be part, an integral part, of policies and procedures and decision-making at refineries. I was equally concerned by the report we received that indicated concern about retaliation, fear of reporting hazards to management at Chevron as well as to Cal Osha. The freedom and the necessity of workers to report unsafe conditions and concerns, both to us and to management. The ability of workers to freely know that they can shut down hazardous operations facing imminent hazards, we feel was at fault. The lack of that freedom was at fault in this accident, which could have killed not only many workers, but many community members. And then finally, I just want to close with a comment about an agreement with the CSB's recommendation for the need for a more coordinated and collaborative interagency regulatory approach to both worker and community and environmental protection from refinery hazards. I am proud to be part of this administration and want to note that the refinery, the Governor's Interagency Task Force, was launched well before CSB's recommendations and report. We began very early in the process and realized it was not only Cal Osha's regulatory insights and investigation, but the work of our sister agencies at a local, state, and national level that are the only way to ensure future protection. We are hard at work, both looking at better coordinated and effective and responsive emergency preparedness, as well as prevention measures. This report will give us new grist to consider. The Governor's Task Force is certainly looking at ways we can share data about hazards, about enforcement histories, consider joint or coordinated enforcement actions, and certainly to improve the transparency and clarity of the different agencies' responsibilities, their laws, their jurisdictions, and empower much more effective enforcement actions, again, to ensure the protection of refinery workers and communities. We have been gathering the perspectives of all stakeholders, labor, industry, community, and others, and will be issuing a report and recommendations in May. And I want to, again, just look back to the transparency and the critical ingredient of information from refineries, of their hazards, of their processes. A strong and well-informed regulatory system is certainly key, and better systems for collaboration are in the works, but they will demand, ultimately, more transparency from the refineries of key information essential for worker protection and community protection. Thank you.